All attendees, please silence your mobile devices and take your seats. Our program will begin shortly. All attendees, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Please welcome Angie Jones, Vice President of Developer Experience at the Agentic AI Foundation.
How are you? Good morning. How's everybody feeling? I'm glad you made it back. How was yesterday? Good? Wonderful. Well, we have even more in store for you today with more keynotes, more track sessions, so definitely buckle up. Clicker. No clicker. Sorry. Thank you. All right. Yes, so we want to give a special shout out to our diamond sponsor, AWS. Thank you so much. Y'all thank them for me. Yes. Conference would not be possible without them. Thank you. All right, so y'all ready to jump right in? Yeah? Any burning questions? Somebody tell me your favorite MCP server. You. Sure. Context 7, I love that one. Yes, that's the one that'll help you keep up with your docs. So different docs for different coding tools and things like that. And so your agent can keep up to date with like the latest commands and stuff like that. Any other? Linear MCP server, connect to your work. All right, I love that. Which one? Say it. Docker. Okay, that's a good one too. Atlassian? Which one? Jira. Oh, the Jira one. Okay, all right. I like that. I like when people connect to their work so you can be more productive. One more. Playwright, yes, that's a good one as well. Help you do your browser automations. Perfect, perfect. So, great. We're going to jump right into our first keynote of the morning. We have Sam Party, who is the founder and CTO of Arcade. And Sam is a fun guy, all right? So y'all give him energy, he'll give you energy. He might give you energy if you don't give him energy. So let's be prepared for fun. Come on, Sam.
I didn't know I was going first, but I love it. How's everybody doing? Good? Yeah. Linear MCP is awesome. That was mine. I have a lot of MCPs at Arcade, but I got to tell you, I use Linear probably every day at this point. Mostly because I refuse. I was a Jira company beforehand, and honestly, I love Jira and Atlassian, and I can't write up tickets anymore. I got to have an MCP do it. I don't know if y'all are the same way now, but I cannot. Claude does all of the ticket writing for me now, for sure. Anyway, I'm Sam Party, CTO and co-founder of Arcade.dev. And today I'm going to just talk about the infrastructure that's kind of powering the next generation of agents. And so really big headliner here is protocol's only good as the actors that speak the protocol, right? So just like HTTPS and that classic diagram that you see in every SynAC, classic computer science course, right? It's only as good as the Bob and the Jane that are actually speaking back and forth to each other. If they aren't secure, right, the protocol's not secure. If they are not utilized well, then the protocol's not utilized well. And so it's important that we talk about what actually goes into the infrastructure that powers the actors, the runtimes, the pieces of infrastructure on either side of the protocol, right? And so this is kind of a little bit something that's not always spoken about, but it is really important. And a lot of these topics, one might construe as the, boring or mundane parts of the computer science lexicon, but they are definitely some of the most important. So I will start by saying MCP is the protocol layer that is needed and is necessary, but is not entirely sufficient. And I'll tell you why. There's a bit of a gap. And so you have the agents, you have MCP, the protocol, just like I was saying, like HTTPS. But then there's this layer here where we talk about, okay, how do I see what's going on? How do I see how much it's costing me? How do I see what they did, when they did it, who they did it for, who approved it, right? All of these things, they're really important. If you're a bank and you put something in prod, and somebody, in the future, we want to be able to say, hey, Claude, send, Zelle my friend $10. We're never going to get there without the identity discovery, governance, cost, observability, and many other things that go in this dotted red box right here. And so having that filled in with the same type of security that we've been putting in applications for the past, 2 decades is an incredibly important thing to have MCP flourish in its ecosystem. And this is also a lot of an opportunity for everybody in the room to build and fill this box in with awesome companies built around MCP. So if you and your company are thinking about doing that, then this is also that time. I can tell you, as a company that's trying to fill in some of this red box, there's a lot to fill in, and there's a lot of bites to be chewed. So I'll talk about 3 today. I talked some about this in my talk in Bangalore, but I really talked mostly about identity, and I will talk about 2 others today that are actually near and dear to my heart right now, particularly the number 2, which is the discovery process, but also a little bit about governance. I'll talk about how these are 3 primitives, right, that are really building blocks that are not necessarily missing, but are not completely filled in. And so that everybody in this room needs to know this in order to say, how can we march this MCP ecosystem forwards? Firstly, I'll talk about identity. So I say this in a lot of my talks, but if you're using a user token directly, or you're using a service token, you most likely end up in one of these 2 camps. You're either over-permissioned, you've given your service token so many permissions that it can actually do all the things you want it to do, right? But then all of a sudden you realize, it has scopes and claims to delete my Google Docs. Not good. You don't probably want your agent to be able to delete your Google Docs. So some of those privileges you might not want your users to be able to do, or your agent to be able to do on behalf of your users. And then mostly I see demos and POCs that get killed in the under-permissioned camp, where they don't have enough scopes or claims or privileges to actually do anything useful. They can't create the doc, they can't do anything, edit the doc, right? They can search over the docs, they can access the search API, but if you actually want to do something with the API, sometimes they don't have enough permissions to do so. Usually that's not the user token case, but that's the service token case. And so there's a aspect of these types of approaches, and you see attacks like the ones that happened at Vercel, where the scopes and claims that went into the tokens for their Google application, their OAuth application, were too big. They encompassed too much. And so that was an attack vector, right? And so it's really important that we actually adopt what's called delegated authorization. Delegated authorization is part of the tool authorization. It is not the auth C that gets you in the front door. It is the auth Z that actually allows your agent to perform an action as a user. It is not enough to do something for a user. You have to be able to do it as that user. I wish I had the time to go through each and every aspect of this, but essentially that agent needs to, at runtime, be able to say for that user, can I do this? Do I have access to do this? And has that access been granted in a time window recent enough to be called a privileged window? And that is something we've been doing for many other applications for some time, but we have not yet done fully in the entire ecosystem of agents. So discovery. Discovery is very important, and it's something that a lot of people talk about, but yet it's really fractured across the ecosystem. We have people using skills, and I know it says YAML front matter, and it's actually technically a markdown file in some ways, but the discovery primitives in the ecosystem, including Anthropic's approaches like defer loading, some are client local, some are actually really not helping the problem of context windows when they overload the context windows with too many skills that never exit the context window. And tool schemas in general bulk up these context windows with lots of typically unused tools. And so the concept of discovery is really, how do we efficiently get the skills and capabilities into my agent's window so it knows exactly what I want it to do when I want it to do it? And when I don't want it to do those things anymore, how do I take them out of the discovered set? And so there's a state problem here as well. And so discovery is something where most people are just currently still putting in all of their tools into the agent's context window, which is that static enumeration. But if you go look at papers even as far back as 2024, which in this landscape is a really long time, you'll see that is really when your agent starts to not be able to call your tools as well. And so this kind of enumeration breaks down. You see lots of different vendors approaching this, but those APIs typically do not scale across different vendors. One works for OpenAI, one works for Anthropic, one works for an open source model, and even if you approximate to their APIs, it usually doesn't work as well as the first class API. And so there's a discovery mechanism across the ecosystem that needs to be built up. We've been trying to work on something like this. If you'd like to work on something like this, we'd actually love to hear from you. It's an open source effort right now. It's called omni.arcade.dev, but it's a universal, vendor-neutral version of this that we're going to be kind of proposing and working on a lot of the working groups and the Linux Foundation working groups. But it is not necessarily in a standard primitive right now. We need to be able to say, once again, how do I get these skills, these tools, and do them over MCP so that people don't confuse skills with being, something different from MCP, right? Skills over MCP, like approaches like Skilljack, if you've seen that one on GitHub, those are important, necessary research steps, Omni being another one, but we have not gotten to a consensus protocol for how to do these discoveries for each and every agent, for each and every, or as each and every user, and do them in a consistent enough way for everyone to build upon in a vendor-neutral way. That's a very important part of the next step of this ecosystem. Lastly, and probably most importantly, and one of the more, if you will, boring parts, but for MCP to be adopted at major enterprises, we have to have a little bit more of that boring. The governance, the audit logging, the ability to say, how do I trust my agents and not get fired when they do something I don't want them to do? How do I know that this user at this time said that this agent could do this as me? And those are very important primitives that do not exist across the ecosystem at this point in time. Even though they're being worked on, obviously, Arcade being one of the companies that is obviously working on them, it is not fully adopted across the ecosystem. And so I'm here to advocate for each and every one of you to think more about these things when you're building, whether it's applications, contributing to MCP, building your own MCP servers. Think more about each and every piece of this governance stack. RBAC, things like being able to say one person's an admin of this server and one person isn't. And policy enforcement that exists possibly outside of just Google's policy, but something that even possibly extends beyond the policy of one OAuth application. These are important primitives that we need to be able to, as a community, land and kind of agree upon so that there's consensus on what we're building on. I'll show you kind of what the current approaches we've seen and are trying to build on today for this are, but things like pre and post hook tool execute. I'm sure many of you use these in Claude. But pre-execution and having roles in place, just like I mentioned, being able to say, even as far back as LangChain's interrupt concept, that we are able to say this particular action requires a user to be involved. But we still don't have this infrastructure in place to be able to say, you need to go text this user or make a PagerDuty notification or something like that, right? That might be an escalation that's a little bit too privileged. But the point being, there's still some type of escalation, there's still some type of audit log, and all of these things need to be in place in order for the banks of the world, the healthcares of the world, for our doctors to be able to use Claude. We need to be able to have each and every one of these primitives in place, from delegated authorization to the discovery of the capabilities in a reliable way, and then the enforcement and policies in place to do them in a reliable and safe way. If we have all of these things, MCP will be able to become the protocol that we want to use across each and every one of our applications and be deployed in a safe way where an enterprise can adopt it and use it for a real-world scalable application. MCP is that protocol. The runtime is what we build on top of. These are 3 primitives today that I'll talk about in the future in more talks, but hopefully you gleaned a little bit of where we want to build in the future and some of the ways that we think we can affect the ecosystem. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Sam. All right, our next keynote speakers are Riddick Roy and Aditya Soni. And Riddick is a platform advocate at vCluster Labs, and Aditya is a senior DevOps engineer at SailPoint, as well as a CNCF ambassador. So they are going to discuss 5 missing layers in the MCP ecosystem, and then strategies for scaling the protocol. Please give it up for Riddick and Aditya.
So, hi everyone. MCP started a couple of years back, and now we are having a conference for that. Not only just in India, but across the world. And that's a great feat. And if you see, from a higher perspective, it's not that long that's been MCP introduced. While we are saying about like how you can go with millions of servers, we don't have to forget where we came from. And we have did this before. So starting with, if we talk about this thing we have done before in CNCF, so in CNCF landscape, we have scaled so much fast, and now the same thing we are doing with MCP. The main thing why we moved across the whole CNCF landscape and scaled it, it's just not about tooling. It's about standard governance and more. So even though you can have a lot of tools in the bucket, but still you can miss a lot of pieces. And that's the one lesson we have to learn from. Today, MCP has become one of the most calling protocol in the whole agentic AI stack. And that's why it's much needed for us to govern it, and going forward, like each and every layer we have to secure. And that's what we're gonna discuss today. Today, I just want to talk about 2 numbers here. The one is 13 weeks and another 13 months. If you see those, MCP has grown that much, so in just 13 weeks, it was able to load bearing. You were able to run the whole of it, and then you were getting the responses, and the things were running well. And the same feat, when we talk about the CNCF, it took around 13 months. And that's what the whole point is. We don't have to debate about like the exact numbers, but if you talk about more on these, then MCP has gone that much faster. Like we have missed a lot of plumbing underneath, and that's where from it comes. Let me ask you a quick question. So how many of you have built your own MCP server or maybe deployed it? Cool, a lot of you, right? And that's from it's come from. So in 2024, we were about there to building an MCP server. And then we just moving around from that, we have built thousands of them. And today, it's not about is MCP is capable, are we able to do this or not? It's just about how you will be operating it in production. At the same time, while it comes to the million of numbers, how you will govern it. And that's what we have to focus on. While we move forward, you have to focus on the middle thing that we are talking about. So it starts from your consumers, that's AI agents, and typically it's you as user who just give the commands and you just waiting for your response and all. And then the standard protocol that you have your MCP that sits in between. And again, your whole infrastructure that sits in below like the Kubernetes or the cloud, database, or APIs. But the major thing that you are not focusing on all of the stack. Starting with discovery. So when you are searching something, where it's going, the first request, what it's hitting. The next thing is identity. While you're calling it, who and what is getting you the responses. At the same time, we have to trace each and every calls while what you're making. Let's say if one of your calls hang, or it's taking a lot of time to get back, you have to trace each and every milliseconds for that, like how it's behaving, maybe how you can improve that. So observability is much needed. And then we have trust signals and metering. So again, the cost is the major factor here, and then you have to focus on that too. So compiling all of those in together, this talk will help you to understand like how you can scale your MCPs to millions of servers, and while you take care of all of this, how that can help you. So let's start with the first thing first. That's we have done this before. It's not a new thing that we are doing today itself. In Kubernetes era, we have done this. Kubernetes won just not because of containers, because containers were already there. It won because of the standardization. We were focusing on all of those service discovery, workload identity, either observability, policy, or the cost. And that's the same thing we have to do with the MCP, and if we want to win the same whole stack. Let's start with the first layer, that's the discovery. So discovery is not about what you are searching, or when you are searching for a particular protocol, or maybe your particular MCP, it's all about searching the right one. So if you see here, you can have a multiple GitHub MCP in your bucket. So while your agent needs a GitHub access, and you are just calling the GitHub MCP, that request can go to your public vendor, or maybe the private vendor, or maybe something that is abandoned at all, not having any last commit from last 6 months, something like that. So you have to figure it out, and then again, the naming convention should not be the same for all of them.
Now the thing is that there is something called identity as well. So when we talk about identity, it's not about OAuth, it's about who is who. While entering the venue, if you get an ID check, you know you are the person entering the venue. But with agents, things are a bit different. Currently, we just spawn our agent, give our bearer token, and does all the work. But at the background, there is a lot of things happening. Currently, that is the log which you get when your agent acts on behalf of you. But there are things like OBO, single hop, multi-hop. What it does is like it goes and finds the bearer token, it exchanges with a real-time token which it's used to go and give more visibility to the agent. Like over here, we know agent 7 is used by Alice to go and delete something. The next is observability. Right now, agents work on reconciliation loop by the design of it. And it goes and completes the work and keeps on looping till the work is not completed. That is a good thing, but the problem is you don't get visibility about what and why something is happening. If we go and look at the traces, everything is there, but there is no correlation between them. There comes a need for 17 convention, where you can understand and relate what and why things are happening and how everything adds to a bigger picture. Then reputation. We used to have a lot of Docker images back, but then we used to have verified Docker images. Now we have an MCP registry with all those MCPs over there. But when we have thousands and millions of them, the difference between what and which to use is between verification and trust signals. Next, we have metering. Now, by the design of agents, we go and ask it to do us something, maybe a generator report. It goes, calls a lot of tools, calls a lot of APIs, and we get the report. At the end, your platform team sees that there is a cost associated with it, but there is no correlation between what is the cost, why is the cost, and how things add up. That creates a picture of where you are consuming more token than required for a specific task, and there is no feedback loop on there. Overall, those are a couple of problems, but things are changing for good. In July 28, there is a RC supposed to release, which changes things a bit more. We used to have shared session store currently, and that consumes a lot of token because you need to store your sessions and also make sure that there is that for your requirements. But now we are moving towards something more stateless where there is no session storing happening. So it reduces the depth and it also builds the middle because now you can have your requests go through any of the instances more smoothly and it behaves like an ordinary stateless API. And it is not just about statelessness. It is about more. There are 4 things which I want to highlight. It's a big RC, so you can go through it. But first is discovery. Now your session or your agent can go and ask for the menu of all the things that is capable of that in a single request. Then there is identity. As we are coming to the venue or as we are coming to the server, we need to verify. And with this RC, the logging into server got more safer. Observability. Now trace context is very standardized. So your agent, which is going through a lot of things to get a task done for you, can be followed across different servers as a single trace with help of W3C, and you can understand the entire reconciliation loop of the agent. And metering. Now gateways can finally count and cache calls because there are two new headers that are introduced, MCP method and MCP name. So overall, the RC brings a lot of solution to the problems we have. And if you are interested to learn more, you can scan this QR code, which talks about MCP is growing up from Angie. And it talks about how and what is the ecosystem growing into. Overall, MCP has become a standard which is used by all of us. And the entire ecosystem around is growing humongously. So it's the right time to be a part of it. And at the end, what is that there is a lot more things to do, and we are just getting started over here.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Riddick and Aditya. All right. How y'all feeling? Great? Okay, we have one more keynote speaker before we break for our sessions, and that is Roman and Ronnie. So Roman is a developer advocate at Google, and today is going to talk about how enterprises can scale AI agents securely and reliably. Please give a warm welcome for Roman.
Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to, talk about that. We've got pretty good at, building out our agents, talking to local MCP servers. But really, when we have to push this over to making it more enterprise friendly, there have been certain kinds of challenges. We hit some kind of an engineering wall when it comes to, just reliability, running these things at scale, security, governance, some of the things that we saw in the earlier two talks also. So what I wanted to stress upon is some of our experiences, how we are going about building and giving a platform approach to this whole thing, and why it's essential in order to make sure that some of the agents run at scale. But, okay. But why is it so difficult really to move some of our agents, when we are moving from local to just running them at scale? And the important thing to note is that in order to make our agents, useful, we've understood that we need to connect these to our actual data. But when we are connecting it to, some of our systems, that's where the complexity begins to grow. And one of the key reasons also is this whole agentic sprawl that you're seeing. Just over the last couple of years, how some of the frameworks have come about, the way some of this development has happened, the rapid pace of it, just that whole way that we've gone about integrating it has resulted in the fact that if you have to meet some of these business outcomes when it comes to just running them reliability and at scale, you start hitting a problem. So what I wanted to highlight in the next few slides during this talk is to look at 4 kind of pillars that if you have to build out a platform for your agents and servers to run reliability and at scale plus meet the enterprise things, there are 4 key pillars that I want to touch upon and which I'll go into detail. So the keywords that I want to talk about are like the build, scale, govern, and then of course the whole optimization layer. So I'll take you through these 4 that kind of we believe form some kind of a platform play in order to run these at scale. So first up is the most essential one, which is build, right? And when we talk about build, also keep in mind we are just not talking about the different tools that we need to bring in order to get all the users to build out these agents, but also we need to support several of the protocols which you are seeing out here. We know that it's not just going to be deep engineering folks building out these agents, but pretty much across the thing. So just like how we've had the spectrum in the compute options earlier, we're looking at right from no code, low code to even some kind of full SDKs that you give to build out agents. So not just access to models, to frameworks, but you need all of that support in order to build these things. But once the folks have built out these, right, the question comes in that of the second pillar, that okay, we build these things, now we need to run these. Now obviously this running is not going to happen on your local setup, but if you have to provide a platform, right, so what is the runtime you're going to be hosting this on? So the runtimes could be some of the popular ones that you're seeing today, but along with runtime, right, we're also looking at how do we sort of give isolated, sandboxes in order to run these agents. And that brings in many parts of the platform that will need to come into play. Do you want to push all this responsibility of running these agents, long-running ones, sessions, state, etc., onto the developers, or do you want the platform to start providing it? So that's where you see some of these couple of other boxes in the scale factor, which is what about long-term, short-term memory, state? So it needs to be provided by the platform itself in order to do that. And just to highlight this, right, since the core thing is about MCP, I just wanted to give a flavor of what we've sort of been through while doing this. Now, obviously, you've got these MCP servers, which when we install, let's say locally, they do a long list of downloads. Obviously, this does not cut it when it comes to an enterprise platform. You just don't want these to download packages which have been probably unverified and installed. So what we have done actually, even for some of our core services, was to take all of them and create an MCP layer right on top of it, which you see. So this, what it gives is really zero infrastructure setup needed on part of the person who's deploying these things, plus close integration with some of the security primitives and more. And of course, then that gives a clear cut by which you can integrate these into your agents. But as we are going about all of these things, right, as earlier you saw also, the whole part about who is doing what, right? Do we need different kinds of identities? Can we really even do the whole clearly, track and trace out there? So both authentication, authorization, yes, we've actually looked at things from two gates perspective. One is whether they are even allowed to make a call to the MCP servers. And secondly, even if they're allowed, the next gate would be, are they even authorized to perform that function that's required? But not just that, it also brings in things like complete auditing. And as was earlier mentioned, one of the key things was not just loading in all the skills, but are we making sure that the agent gets only the things it needs to see, even from a data perspective, tools, skills, all of that perspective, right? So there needs to be all of this at each of the levels. And that brings me to the third pillar, which is the whole governance thing. You've heard this, a bit earlier, but just let me also sort of double down on that. So agent registry, let me start there. So it's not just about MCP servers, but also the skills, the tools, all of this into one centralized catalog so that you can discover what are the right things you have to use, which have been vetted by the organizations, and thereby that's available. Now, there's a different kind of agent identity also, like based on SPIF standards, which could be used in order to provide, the least privilege that's required. So it's not just going to be like service accounts or keys that you want to use, but a complete identity of its own by which, on behalf of the user, what you're authorized to do, etc., is all built into it. Plus, it's also make sure that any kind of dormant credentials, etc., are taken care of. But how does all of that come together? It comes in via what we are calling a gateway. And the gateway is the one that receives the requests, verifies the identity, plus does many other things. You might see specific product names here like Model Armor, but really it's all about ensuring that any kind of prompt injection, any kind of things that you don't want the agents to even see is also taken care of by the agent layer itself. So that's the whole governance identity part. And then of course, the fourth one is the optimization. Now these are dynamic systems and it's important that if you're providing a platform, you also need to make sure that you provide features by which folks can evaluate the agents, tool trajectories, execution times, etc. But also things, for example, like observability, which you see, so that you can probably look at improving the agents. And other things is optimization. This is interesting. You also want to see if the agents are performing well. Are there any ways by which you can suggest any prompt improvements, etc. So all of these things, the 4 pillars which I was talking about, the build, scale, governance, and then optimization. These are 4 key things if you have to bring a platform, into play. So finally, just wanted to stress upon that, while we've been building these agents, if you have to truly take these to, production at scale and meeting some of the enterprise requirements, a platform is essential because that helps to give not just the whole security aspect of it, but various things like, I would say, a new kind of identity, ensuring they only do things they're supposed to do, full accounting, auditability, and more. So the message I want to bring across is that as folks who are bringing these things to your organization, it's important that we think in terms of a platform approach in order to make a reality that these agents can scale at the level we want to in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roman. All right. Okay, let's all take a good stretch. How y'all feel? Good? Wonderful. We made it through another set of wonderful keynotes. We're going to take a short break. And then we're going to start our sessions at 11:30. What time is it now? 11 what? 10:40? Oh, you have a really nice long break. Okay, so we have a nice break, go chit-chat, network with others, and then at 11:30, we're going to start our sessions, okay? All right, see you there. Show me now.